G'day guys, and welcome to today's video. So unfortunately, Metro Melbourne is still in lockdown, which means I can't get out for a fish. I've been fishing down the Werribee River of late, but it has been really tough going, and there has not been a lot of fish caught from latest reports.
There we go. Beautiful fish. See if we can get a few more of them, we'll be happy.
So today's video, pretty much all about the humble flathead and what I do to target and catch a feed of flathead. So today's video, I'm going to go through the rods, the reels, the techniques, the bait, soft plastics, and rigging as well, so that you guys at home hopefully can learn something, and once we get out of lockdown can go out and target this glorious fish as well. Alright guys, so first things first, when I'm targeting flathead out in the bay, I'm going to base this around fishing out off Campbell's Cove. So I'm going to be fishing anywhere from 4 meters up to about 6.5 meters. I'm going to be drifting, and sometimes I'm going to be anchored up as well, depending on what I'm chasing at the time. So I want to go through some of the rods that I use and give you a rough idea of what sort of rod you're looking for if you want to go out and target a flathead as well. Alright guys, so the first rod in question, when I'm out in the kayak or even off the rocks and I'm bait fishing for flathead, this is my go-to rod. So this guy here is a custom built JD Rods. Now I had this custom built by John Darley of JD Rods, and he built this to the exact specs that I asked for. He's been building rods for over 30 years, and he started the craft back when he was a young fella. After he finished school, he used to help his old man when his old man was building fishing rods as well. He also does rod repairs, and he also does reel maintenance. So this guy is a 7-foot one piece, and it's paired up with a Penn Battle 3 2500 reel, which is perfect for targeting flathead out in the bay. That reel is paired up with 10-pound braid, and depending on the rig that I use at the time, it's either going to be 15-pound leader or it's going to be 8 to 10-pound leader. This rod is nice and light. It is a 1 to 4 kilo rod, and it's a nice whippy action. So that's one. Alright guys, so the other rod in question, if you've been watching the channel for a while, you would have seen me use this rod. Now, this was designed by me, and I asked John to make this rod for me to pretty much exactly the specs that I asked for. Now, this is almost like a broomstick, this rod. Now, I like this because I can cast soft plastics with it. I can go really light on the soft plastics and the jig heads, and I can cast this and I have no issues casting them whatsoever. And I attribute that to the microwave guides which are on this rod. So the microwave guides, whether the camera can pick this up or not, but that's these guys here. What I'll do is I'll leave a link to the Microwave Air Guides website over my left shoulder. I'll put a little write-up down the bottom as well, so you can have a look at what the Microwave Air Guides are. Pretty much what they do is help the line come off the reel in a nice straight fashion. So when the line comes off this reel, it's spinning till it gets to this first guide, and then this first guide pretty much turns it into a funnel, and then it's just one straight line all the way through. If you have a look at the diagram below, it's got a rough idea of what the Microwave Air Guides do to your casting ability and your rods. So this rod here is a custom built rod again, and this is the custom built Tigers rod that I've had made. So it's the yellow CRB blank, and the CRB is the American Custom Rod Builders brand, and it's a one-piece graphite rod. Now this was a 7'6" rod, and we cut it down because it was too flimsy at the top. So we've cut it down, so it's now a 6'10", and it is absolutely perfect for me to get those casts right in amongst the snags when I'm in fresh water, in the estuaries. And when I'm out in the bay, I can cast a mile with this rod. So what I've paired that up with is a Roxani again, but we've got the Roxani 2000 on there, and that has 8-pound braid. And I normally run a 6 to 8 pound fluorocarb leader on there, depending on what I'm chasing. If I'm chasing brim, I go down to a 4-pound leader. But again, JD Rods, custom built rod, absolute genius listens to everything that you ask for and puts it into practice. And this rod, I love this rod. All right guys, so this guy here, you would have seen this weapon being used in a lot of my videos over the last 18 months. This is the Veritas 3.5, 6'10", 3-piece travel rod. And it's a 2 to 4 kilo rod. And I've got this paired up with the Roxani 2500. Fairly balanced rod, this one. Nice and light, comes in 3 pieces. So, nice little travel rod. This rod pretty much lives in the back of my car. So that's it there. So if I'm ever out and about and I can go for a quick flick, I've always got a rod on hand. So like I said guys, any sort of rod between a 1 to 4 kilo, 2 to 5 kilo is roughly what you're looking for when you're going to chase flathead out in the bay, especially off Campbell's Cove. Alright guys, so up next, I'm going to go into the rigs. So there's pretty much one rig that I use when I'm bait fishing for flathead. Now, that one rig is just your standard paternoster. A lot of people know what the paternoster rig is. What I'll do is show you a quick video on the paternoster rig. If you haven't already seen it, jump across to one of my other videos. It's the knots and rigs video. Or if you keep watching, I'll put a quick short up to this video of me tying a standard paternoster rig. Alright guys, so to tie a simple paternoster rig, here's your main line. This is the bottom of your main line. So you're going to do a simple loop knot with a granny knot. Pull that tight. There's your loop for your sinker. Come about a foot up from the bottom. Pinch your 2 pieces of line together. Another simple granny knot. Pull that tight. There's your loop for your first hook. And if you want to do a second hook, come up about another foot. Same thing. Loop your line together. Do a simple granny knot. Pull that tight. And there you have your standard paternoster rig. So what you would do then is grab a sinker, loop your sinker onto this side, grab your 2 hooks, you have 1 hook on either side here. So if you're stuck on time and you don't have a lot of time to tie your own rigs, what you can do is jump online, go to Rigmaster Tackle, have a look at these guys here. These are the hairy back rigs, which is the whiting circle hooks. Now, I picked up a fair few of these off eBay. You can also get them direct from Rigmaster Tackle. And these are so simple to use. Pretty much tie your main line onto the swivel, you unravel it, put a sinker on the bottom, and you're ready to go. Chuck some bait on, and happy days. Some of the hooks I like to use, when I tie my own paternoster rigs, there's 2 different hooks that I like to use. One of them being these guys here. This is the 2-0 circle hook. Now, this is the most versatile hook around, especially when you're drifting out in the bay for flathead. When you're drifting, you can put your rod in the rod holder, have the circle hooks on with a little bit of squid, and that way when you're off flicking plastics, the flathead are pretty much going to hook themselves. The other hook I like to use, if I'm at anchor, I'll use these guys here. So these are the 2-0 suicide hooks. Now, flatheads' mouths are pretty big. Doesn't matter what size of flathead you're going to hook, you're going to be able to hook them with these guys. And all you got to do, depending on what depth you're fishing, just chuck a little sinker on the bottom. Alright guys, so what I'm going to do is I'll show you how I rig squid. So a lot of people, when they're putting squid on the line, they thread it on, and it doesn't look natural. So what I've found most productive when I'm chasing flathead, especially when I'm drifting, is say that's your squid strip, you just want to peg that straight through the top, and pretty much that's your bait ready to go. Throw that in, something's going to come along and pick that up and engulf the whole lot, especially if it's a decent sized flathead. 9 out of 10 times you're going to hook that flathead. That size there is pretty much the size of the squid strip that I would normally use, and that way that's going to get a wide variety of species as well. If you've got gummy sharks swimming around, you're probably going to pick up a gummy shark as well. What I also like to use is pilchard tails. It's just the way I was shown when I was growing up by my old man. All we use is the back third, pretty much, of the pilchard, which includes the tail itself. All right, guys, so say that's your pilchard tail. Weird looking pilchard tail, but that'll do. All I want to do with that is go through one side, back through the same side, so with the line facing the tail. So you pretty much want your pilchard strip just like that, and then what you do, a little half hitch around the end of that tail, and that holds it in place just like that. That's going to be more presentable and look more natural to the fish than if you've got the hook going all the way through. And the advantage to that is if something comes along and grabs that, you've got a lot of the hook showing, so it's going to grab the hook and it's going to hook itself. Whereas if you completely embed that hook into the pilchard tail, you got less chance of getting a hook up. What I find most productive when bait fishing is drifting. So that way you cover a lot more ground. So while I'm out in the bait, I'm going to be flicking plastics. I'm also going to have the rod sitting out to the side, and I'm going to be drifting along. And that's going to be covering a lot more ground with the bait, with that bait just wafting along, bouncing off the bottom. So I'll show you a quick video and show you exactly what I mean. I had the wind coming from the northeast on this occasion. So I'll leave a little diagram and a map on where I was drifting. I was drifting at about 1 to 2 knots, and I paddled out and I was pretty much zigzagging across the bay down at Campbell's Cove, and it was a really, really productive session. Take a look.
It's a good flatty if it's a flathead, that's for sure. It's well hooked, that's for sure. I don't want to tighten the drag up too much. For the simple reason is I'm only using light line. It is a massive flatty. Oh yeah, good fish. Oh, that's a lizard of a fish. Oh, us has been kind to the fish. That is for sure. That is a slab of a flathead.
So we've gone through the bait and the different techniques on how to fish with the bait. So what I want to get into now is some soft plastics. I'm going to run off 3 of my most successful soft plastics. Now, the first one in question is this guy here. Unfortunately, you can't get these from BCF anymore. They have been discontinued. So these guys here are a Savage Gear sand eel with curl tail, 10 centimeters in motor oil. And this plastic in question, I have caught my PB flathead on this plastic out off Campbell's Cove. Rigged with a 1/6 of an ounce or a 1/4 of an ounce jig head, and it's absolutely dynamite to flathead out off Campbell's Cove. Take a look at this video and I'll show you what I mean.
Oh, fish on. Oh, that's a good fish too. Woo! Didn't even know he was hooked. Oh my God. Okay, that way. This has got to be a good flatty, I would assume. Pulling some good string. Oh, doesn't want to come in, that's for sure. Woo! Jeez. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Can't pull too tight on this fish. I'm only using 6-pound leader. Oh yeah, it's a good flatty. It's a really good flatty. Bring her around this side. Wee, don't come off. Oh yes. There you go, guys. Rewarded for a 4 AM start. Cracker of a flathead.
All right, guys, so the second lure in question. Now, this has got to be my second most successful lure. This guy here is the Savage Gear Pro Grub in pink, 8 centimeters. Can I say I've caught the most fish with this lure out of every other lure that I've used. I'm not sure why they like the pink, but they do. So I'll show you the pink grub in action. Take a look at this video. He's back. Flatty. So the third lure that I use probably the most out off Campbell's Cove, a lot of people will know what this lure is. This is the Z-Man 3.5 inch grubs. Now, this guy here is in bloodworm. The bloodworm Z-Man grub I find works better than the 2.5 inch motor oil. I mean, if you're chasing brim and stuff like that in the estuaries, yep, go for it, use the 2.5 inch motor oil. But this guy here, if you're chasing flathead, use this one. This has got to be my third most successful lure that I've used. Here's a little clip on me using them plastics. Alright guys, so techniques with soft plastics. What I find the most effective when targeting flathead out in the bay, whether you be drifting or at anchor and you're casting out your plastics, what you want to do, cast that plastic out, let it sit there, watch for your line. Once your line goes slack, you know it's hit the bottom. Once it's hit the bottom, what you want to do, give it a couple of twitches and let that rod sit back down and the soft plastic will sink back to the bottom. Especially with all these curl tail grubs that I'm using. So you want to impart as much action on the uprise as you can, let it settle, and that grub's going to be curling all the way back to the bottom. When it hits the bottom, it's going to create a tuft of sand, of mud, wherever you're fishing, and it's going to get the flathead's attention. And the flathead's going to come over and go, what's that? 9 out of 10 times when you flick it up, when you're letting that rod sit back down and the plastic drift back to the bottom, 9 out of 10 times, that's when you're going to get the flathead hit your plastic. So what you want to do, you want to make sure you've got contact with your line, winding up your slack every time you give it a couple of hops. Make sure you strike on the slightest little bump, because 9 out of 10 times, that slight little bump or slight little tap on that rod tip is the flathead engulfing your soft plastic. So when you go to rise your rod again, give it that little hop, you're going to hook the fish. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you liked this video. If you did, leave me a thumbs up, hit that like button, leave a comment below if there's anything that you want to know or anything that you want me to add. And as always, until next time guys, see you on the water. Cheers.